Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the new Star Wars novel, Thrawn, written by Timothy Zahn. As many of you guys probably already know, the character Thrawn was introduced to the Star Wars universe to the series now known as the Thrawn Trilogy, also written by Timothy Zahn. These books include Heir to the Empire, Dark Forces Rising, and The Last Command. Thrawn has been noted as one of the best characters in the Star Wars universe and one of the most beloved characters from the expanded universe. And the character Thrawn has been reintroduced to the Star Wars canon by the third season of Star Wars Rebels, and Timothy Zahn wrote this new book. Uh, so this book basically takes place right before the first episode. Well, it ends right before the first episode of this third season of Star Wars Rebels, and it tells of the story of how Thrawn was introduced to the Imperial Navy, how he rose through the ranks, and how he became a Grand Admiral right at the beginning of the third season of Rebels. And many people have been saying how great this book is, and today I'm going to take a counterpoint to that. I'm not saying it's terrible, not at all, I don't hate it, but I feel like this is a bit lackluster, especially considering it's a book from Timothy Zahn. Um, I have read the Thrawn trilogy. I've read the sort of prequel to his story, Outbound Flight, and today I'm going to make a lot of comparisons between Thrawn and Outbound Flight because they're more or less both prequel stories of Thrawn, and I'm going to compare the characters Thrawn and Tarkin in their respective novel Thrawn and Tarkin. I don't have that book right now. I also don't have Outbound Flight with me, nor the Thrawn trilogy. I'm in the college apartment right now and don't have access to the books back home, but I'm still going to be talking about these books, and I hope you guys will enjoy this conversation. First of all, I'm going to talk about the positive aspect of Star Wars Thrawn. First of all, it is very obvious that Timothy Zahn had a blast writing it. I am 99% certain that he went through his old trilogy, the Thrawn duology, I think. Well, I actually don't remember exactly the names, but I think it's a duology talking about the Empire of the Hand and Thrawn's own empire in the unknown regions, as well as the prequel story Outbound Flight, as well as a short story that will be very important to the reading of the new Thrawn book called Mist Encounter, basically telling about the story of Thrawn right after he was exiled and how the Empire found him and adopted him into the Navy. That story in particular is important because that is basically the opening of this book. The first story we see is almost word for word a copy of Mist Encounter. Other than that, there are a lot of nice little Easter eggs in this book, and I'm not going to go to spoilers, at least for now, but there are a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of names that you might recognize, a lot of titles, organizations, people, places that you probably recognize if you read the old books about Thrawn. And I think it's safe to say that Zahn had a great time writing it and rereading all the books he's written before. Another thing is this book has a lot of good characters, and I'm going to talk about two in particular. First of all, is the new character that's introduced into this book, Eli Vanto, who is more or less the main character of this book. We basically see Thrawn through Vanto's eyes, and he started out as a low-ranking I think supply officer on a Star Destroyer. Well, not a Star Destroyer, like a cruiser. When he first met Thrawn, and has been his aide because he acted as a translator. But at the same time, Thrawn is seeing potential in him and trying to groom him into a commanding officer. And I really like the character of Eli Vanto. He is basically that sort of fish out of water character, a bit like Thrawn in this situation. He did not want to be in command. He wanted to be a supply officer, just have like a low rank but have a stable job. He didn't know the politics. He didn't know about military, but Thrawn sees the potential and wants to make something out of him. So in this sense, he is very similar to Thrawn, and this is a great setup for a main character, fish out of water. This is very, very common. We see it in Luke and so many other characters. And the psychology behind him, I think, as a character works really good. You see his frustrations with Thrawn sometimes, his frustration with the Navy as a structure, as a system. He gets frustrated, but also in time you also see that he is getting more confident. He is more willing to notice things. He's willing to talk to Thrawn to say, hey, what the hell, why are you doing this? He's getting more and more involved into in the combat, and it's very natural. It's not something forced, and I really like it. The other character that I think is very well written was Governor Price, who started appearing also in the third season of Star Wars Rebels, but her name has been mentioned many a times. And I like her weird political side quest, basically. Her rise from a small time person on Lothal and gradually rising through the ranks and becoming the governor of Lothal. I really like the story. I somehow have a fascination with powerful / ambitious female characters in fiction. I'm not gonna lie about that, but I think her character is very well written. How she started off as pretty, not really hopeful, like, but somewhat naive and somewhat trying to help the people around her, but gradually becoming more and more selfish, more and more keeping everything to herself instead of her friends and family and whatnot. And I think it's really good transition for the character. One thing I don't like about her character, and this is the same thing I have with Thrawn as a character too, is how fast she rose in the ranks. I think her frustration has been very well written, but it seems the way the book is written and its structure made it seems that she's gaining rank all the time. And this is the same problem with Thrawn. Like, first time we see him, he's a lieutenant. And the end of this book, this is not a very big book, mind you, he's already a Grand Admiral. And I feel like even though logically it makes sense in the context of the book, it feels rushed and too fast. And now I'm getting into all the negatives of this book, the parts I don't like. For starters, this is not a necessary book. This is what I refer to as a prequel problem. Not like Star Wars prequels, but prequels in general. I know that Thrawn is a new character introduced to the new canon, so I'm not gonna, at least right now, I'm not gonna look at anything from the old expanded universe, but at least in this new universe, we know what happens in Star Wars Rebels, and this book was released right before the finale of the third season. And we know what happens to Thrawn. So the backstory of Thrawn is not particularly interesting. And nothing in this book screams, this is a story I have to know. Except for the beginning, the missing counter kind of stuff. It sort of shows its origins, but I don't think it's really important to see how Thrawn rose through the ranks, how he fared in the Imperial military, in the academies, for instance, and how he dealt with pirates and stuff. It's not that interesting, and I don't think anything in this book has been portrayed as that interesting. He has an arch nemesis, sort of, in this book. I think referred by some as Moriarty to Thrawn's Sherlock Holmes, and I think that's fair, but it's not really much of a threat in the context of the galaxy or the Empire. And it's definitely not really that important to the character of Thrawn or how we know the story is going to end up at. With prequels like that, when and this goes even with, for instance, The Hobbits, even though the book it was based on was released long before the Lord of the Rings series, when The Hobbit, the movies were made, they all wanted to end up right before where Lord of the Rings started. And this is the same problem with Thrawn, is they wanted to end right where the third season of Star Wars Rebels started. So it is basically writing itself backwards, going from here is like, okay, how do I make it make sense that it's going to end up at that place? And that's problematic because, as I said, in a prequel story, it is not the story itself that's interesting normally, and it's definitely not the end note because we know where the end note is already, and we know even further away what's going to happen. And the good prequels are always revolving around the characters. For instance, a good prequel, I mean, prequel, I guess. For instance, the new Harry Potter movie, what is it called? Fantastic Beasts. I think it's a good prequel because it doesn't, at least for now, it doesn't care about what happens to Grindelwald, what happens to Dumbledore. It has soft mentions of it. It has references, but it doesn't care about it. It cares about the characters, and I think the characters are all really likable. Of course, there's problems with the writing and with other things, but they're very forgivable because the characters are so likable. And in Thrawn has never been a character in the sense that he has no arc. Of course, he doesn't need an arc, of course, but that is when he is the nemesis in the story. That's during the Thrawn trilogy. We never care about who Thrawn is exactly as a character. We have an idea how he's fair to the people who's working for him, but he can also be ruthless and terrifying. But we don't need to know what he's feeling, only what he's thinking. And that's the problem with this book is we still don't see what's he's feeling, only what's his thinking, and that's, you get it from anywhere else. Second of all, my biggest gripe with this book, and probably the most important thing, is I don't find how Thrawn is a genius in like a tactical or strategic kind of way. For instance, this is minor spoiler. This doesn't really matter. In one of the but still, spoilers warning. You heard it. When Thrawn found a destroyed Imperial transport ship, and found out there were large cells with cuffs and stuff, everyone was wondering, what the hell does that mean? Why is this like a normal military transport? It's not sized for humans, for stormtroopers. And when the book is still trying to analyze all the details, my first reaction is, oh, Wookiees. Those are Wookiee slaves. And I think that's problematic because Thrawn is supposed to be this genius, and I'm not supposed to figure it out before him. And I know it is because I'm out of the universe. I know what happens in this book, or like in this universe. I know that Wookiees are around, and of course someone who lives in the universe does not know it just yet. But I think as a writer, it is very easy to write around it. For instance, introduce a new species and have their own traits. So, oh, I would have no clue what it means. Or have some other features of a Wookiee and made it not so obvious to me. If I can figure out something before Thrawn does, I feel like that is a big problem. And as I said, I'm going to be comparing Tarkin to Thrawn a little bit. And in the Tarkin book, I feel like the things Tarkin was doing is much more complicated and much more genius than Thrawn. And that is, I think, not a great idea. Because in the old EU and in everything else before the book Tarkin was released, Tarkin was always this ruthless political guy. He's ruled by fear. He doesn't care about... He wasn't that particular about the details of tactics. He just wanted to be ruthless and get it done. And the things he's doing are much more complicated than what Thrawn is doing. And that creates a problem because Thrawn was supposed to be the tactical / strategic genius, but now Tarkin is basically doing the same thing. And I feel like in the books at least, Tarkin is doing it much better, much more complicated things, much impressive things in Thrawn. And I think this creates a big problem in how good is Thrawn. And I guess the answer right now is not that good.